It's a series of tubes.
It's a matter of sight and sound. It's a source of entertainment and information.
Why, oh why didn't I take the blue pill?
Radio.DePaul.edu is the home of Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
Now, boys and girls, it's time again for...
There's only one radio station that connects you to DePaul University.
I don't know. I just enjoy it.
Chicago.
My kind of town.
And the world.
I guess it's just because you're different somehow.
It's Radio DePaul.
You hear me? Hear me?
Chicago's college connection.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Eli Erskovich and Tom Bostwick here with you, and that is the Purdue fight song. How about that? Just a little intro right there to what we're going to talk about. And a sad story, of course, with the Purdue shooting on Tuesday, killing one teacher's assistant, I believe.
Student.
Or student, yes.
Yeah.
Student teacher.
Yeah, really sad. I think shot and stabbed. It's definitely sad to hear, especially so close here in Chicago. You know, Purdue's just a 2-3 hour drive south of us. You hate to hear it, and there's been a string of shootings too across the country. It's definitely sad to hear.
And then in Oklahoma on Wednesday at Oklahoma University, no evidence of shots fired after the University of Oklahoma reports a shooting, but it's just the idea, campus police being on campus. Now, America's scared right now for the college campuses, for high school campuses, all around.
Right, yeah. There was a last week shooting at Widener in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. There was the shooting outside of New Mexico, a middle school or a high school or something. So there's been a string of them. It's definitely something that people are definitely scared about.
Now we'll be joined by Chris Emma of Scout.com, who writes about Purdue athletics and basketball specifically right now at this time. Chris, are you with us?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
For sure, and let's dive into Purdue basketball. But first here, let's talk about the shooting at Purdue University. You told me you hadn't been back yet, but obviously just in generality terms, talking about how it has affected the university and the players as well, since you were at the basketball game when they played Northwestern.
Yeah, I was there Tuesday night in Evanston, and it was interesting hearing their comments. One of the policies with Coach Matt Painter is that for road trips like this, they take away the phones and that kind of thing. The idea is to focus on basketball, and of course this happens, and it's one of those things where, give the phones back as soon as you can, and you get the players on the phone, they call all their friends and people, everybody back in Purdue, and it's one of those things where they go from, focusing on basketball the way they do for every one of these road games to, turn their focus to what's more important. And, for Coach Painter himself, he's got the daughter as a freshman on campus now, and, he's calling her right away and trying to figure out where she was, how she's doing, that kind of thing. And so it's one of those things where, how it is for athletes. I mean, you try to get your pregame rituals going. It's in the morning of a game, and suddenly everything turns to what's more important. So it was a very surreal and sad day for Purdue overall.
And you had a tweet directly after the game, as Matt Painter said, I don't think basketball is really important when something like this tragic happens, as he was directing his comment to someone who was asking him about the Purdue shooting percentage. And, of course, Purdue lost to Northwestern 63-60. And in your article, you talked about how this hurt their March Madness hopes at 3-3 in the conference, and a tough loss to a big Northwestern team in the conference, too, who's now 3-4 and 10-10 overall. And we talked about it, too, with Hammonds of Purdue, the big man, shooting 3 of 10. What were your thoughts overall on Purdue's performance at Northwestern, obviously having to deal with the tragic events as well?
Yeah, it was, they just, quite frankly, they didn't play well in the game. It was one of those things, there were distractions, obviously, and, Coach Matt Painter talked about the more important stuff aside from basketball, but, the players said, the players didn't say it was a distraction. They said they were able to get focused. It was everything happened in the morning. They had some time to, call loved ones, get, most of their worries off of their minds, and obviously it's something that's going to weigh on you during a game. But, the whole deal with this whole game, they didn't play all that well, period. And a lot of that credit, I think, goes to Northwestern's defense and the game plan they had in place and the way they executed it. Purdue was just sloppy meanwhile, and can pull out a win there. And I mean, yeah, obviously there were circumstances weighing on them, how that impacted the game. I just don't know. You can't answer that. But it's just one of those, kind of crazy and scary and sad days overall. And, playing the basketball game just kind of felt weird in a way.
No, absolutely. And, hearing the players say, it didn't affect their play, you just can't really believe that, because something like that's so traumatic. And good for them for playing the game, though, maybe trying to get their minds off of it. But looking at the basketball, Purdue had won 3 games in a row before that in conference. Tough loss at Northwestern, but they got 2 really tough games coming up here against Wisconsin and Michigan. Wisconsin's lost 3 in a row. Do you see Purdue, stealing one at home here against the Badgers?
I do. I think they come back up fired up. I picked them to lose the game on Tuesday. I picked them to lose at and looking to Saturday against Wisconsin. I think it's just one of those things where they come out a little bit fired up. They realize, okay, we just dug ourselves a hole here. This team has this odd resiliency to it, and that's what kind of made it a little bit stranger that they weren't able to pull that game out at Northwestern when they had so many chances to get these last second shots, and then they let late lead go in the second half, and they had chances to win it. So I think this team bounces back, gets a big win at Mackey Arena, and kind of gets people feeling good again.
Right, and talking about Wisconsin, they lost last night to a Minnesota team, and this Big Ten just has so much parity right now. Minnesota right now at 15-5, and they're on a little bit of run here in the Big Ten Conference at 4-3 right now overall in the Big Ten. They lost to Iowa, a tough one this past Sunday, but then they beat Ohio State, lost to Michigan State, beat Penn State, and beat Purdue as well. So what are your thoughts on, of course, Wisconsin's they had a run coming into this game. They had won, I believe, 3 straight conference games, and now they've lost 3 straight conference games.
Yeah, you said it best about the parity. I mean, it's unbelievable when you look through this Big Ten. This is a debate I was having with a buddy last night. Name your first team All Big Ten. I mean, it's hard to put it together, and I guess that in a way kind of sums up where the conference is as a whole. When you look at, there's so many good teams. There's so many teams that, Ohio State's not a team that's going to lose 4 in a row too often. That's a really good team and one of the top teams in the country potentially. But this Big Ten is just so weird enough where, these kind of things can happen. I mean, look at Minnesota, an upstart team. I don't know many people expected much from them, and they've been playing great basketball. And, I mean, you can name any team. Take a little quick glance at it, and it's hard to get a gauge on it. Northwestern, everybody thought they were digging their grave. They were 0-3 to start. Now suddenly they won 3 of their last 4, and things are looking good. So the whole Big Ten is just it's hard to explain, really. When you look at each of these teams, it's hard to pick the best team in the conference. I mean, Michigan and Michigan State look like they're pretty darn good, but heck, a few months ago, people were writing off Michigan when Mitch McGary was out and they were struggling in non-conference plays. So it's going to be a fascinating rest of the year, and boy, those 4 days in Indy for the Big Ten tournament are going to be fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the talent, the parity of the talent in the Big Ten, but also the coaching. Tom Izzo at Michigan State, John Beilein at Michigan, Matt Painter at Purdue, Thad Matta at Ohio State, Bo Ryan at Wisconsin. All these guys are such fantastic coaches, and they really get the most out of their guys. And looking here at this Purdue team, it's amazing because they don't have any real one standout player. It seems like it's a team that really gets it done together, and they pick one guy each night to step up. But if you had to pick one guy on this Purdue team, who's the player that makes it go?
It's A.J. Hammonds, for better or for worse. That's the big center in the middle, and the guy who you got to count on for double-digit points a game and double-digit rebounds per game to be that force in the middle and take away those shots and to keep teams from driving. And you said, I mean, the player makes them go. I mean, he's the one who makes them go, but it's still stop and go, really. I mean, you can't count on him as much as you want to. And frankly, for a very inconsistent team, there's a bunch of inconsistent players. It's hard to say any player in particular is the guy who, you're going to get 15 points out of him. You can count on him. There's nobody on this team who you can really expect that out of. Jerome Johnson's the leading scorer on this Purdue team, and he went 4 of 17 against Northwestern. You're talking about a game that went to double overtime. He knocked down one of those shots, and you don't have to worry about any of those overtimes. You leave Evanston with a win. So Purdue's lagging that consistency. They got playmakers, and if A.J. Hammonds was a consistent 20 and 10 guy every night, the way that he's got the potential to be, then this would be a tournament team and a top 5 team in the Big Ten. But you just can't expect that.
Obviously, A.J. Hammonds, the sophomore right now, but you talk about the leading scorer for Purdue in Tyrone Johnson being a senior, and the last member standing, I believe, in a part of the crew of Robbie Hummel, Jawan Johnson, and E'Twaun Moore. And don't get me wrong, Chris, that was one of my favorite the trios in college basketball back in the day. I had an Etuan Moore jersey and a Kids XL jersey, and I still do somewhere in my closet. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. But again, you talk about this Purdue basketball team needing the leadership right now. Do they have a chance? And again, you mentioned the Northwestern loss hurting for a March Madness trip this year. Can they make a trip to the March Madness again, or will this team be held back by their youth?
I still think the chance is there, but it's going to be tough to do now. Their Northwestern loss is bad because this Big Ten, as we just talked about, it's so difficult to get any win. You can't count on any game, especially for this inconsistent Purdue team. You can't say any one game is going to be able to for sure win. I mean, they were lucky to hold off Nebraska and lucky to escape Penn State at home. I mean, how are you going to say they can beat any team for sure? So they got to get into the tournament. You got to be, I'd say, a game over 500 at least in the Big Ten, and then win at least 2 in the conference tournament. It can be done. It's a talented team. This is a bad loss in Northwestern, but that's a team that's playing very, very good basketball. Tough to figure out with the way they're playing defense. How to get some offense against those guys because they held Michigan State to 54 points. Iowa's going into Evanston this week, and I think Iowa's going to have a tough time scoring on Northwestern. So it's not a bad loss, but it's a loss that they sure could not afford overall for Purdue. So, I say if you go 10-8 in Big Ten play and you get a couple wins in the Big Ten tournament, then things are looking all right for you.
Obviously, these next 2 games are big for them right now, as we just talked about. The Wisconsin and Michigan game, if they can win these 2 games, that might just turn their season back around, and they might be able to hop on into the Big Ten, or not just the Big Ten tournament. Obviously, that's an automatic lock, but the March Madness as well. The NCAA tournament might be the automatic big for them if they can get some of these big Big Ten victories in conference. Chris, thank you very much for coming on the lineup here with us, and you've been a terrific interview for us, and we hope to have you back on soon.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. That's Chris Emma of Scout.com.